Okay, so I'm going to kickstart this with the survey findings. Okay, so what happened is that we are MEPN, so we wanted to do a lot of programs that can help to enhance the SMEs and M&E sector. Take a seat. It's going to be quite interesting actually, because now when we started to design programs for SMEs in the M&E sector, we realized one thing. During the pandemic, the M&E sector pivoted a lot. It's actually one of the sectors that pivot the most because given that the manufacturing guys were changing their directions and all that, so the M&E sector had to make a lot of changes, right? A lot of people, their core competencies are no longer the same. So we realized that moving forward, if we want to design good programs, we have to understand the new landscape. We cannot make the assumption that things are still the same. So that's why we launch into this thing. So this is a survey, the first post-pandemic survey that we have done that actually tries to understand the new landscape, yeah? And I got to say, a lot of the findings were quite surprising. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about the companies that responded to our survey. We asked them about capacity, their talent, technology, and innovation, resilience, and future readiness. Okay, so first, of all the respondents that responded to our survey, 86%, the bulk of them are actually 100% locally owned, yeah? So the people that responded to this survey are not really part of MNCs. They are true blue SMEs from Malaysia. Company size, you can see that most of them are small manufacturers, with some even micro manufacturers. And their position in the value chain, most of them are manufacturer, and some of them, I think between manufacturers and manufacturing related service provider, this is the bulk of it already, 2/3 of them. Supply chain position, most of them are tier one suppliers. And in terms of market presence, just to establish how strong they are, the bulk of them, they call themselves local presence, and then there are some with established national market presence. So exporters, not so much yet. So how, when we talk about capacity, first we map out what they do in terms of talent, right? Do they actually train their people? So when we ask the question, how skilled are your people? Everyone talks about like talent gap, right? We can't find skilled workers. 50% say that their people are moderately skilled with some specialization. Okay, so that was the first inkling we got that our Malaysian SMEs are not exactly as backward as we may have imagined. There's a narrative going on that Malaysian SMEs are just backwards, right? They are not really. Do you contribute to HRD Corp? A lot of people say no lah, SMEs don't pay for HRD Corp. More than 60% do. More than 80% currently train their employees. More than 90% are ready to train their employees. So, what does this mean? Ah, sorry, yeah, seem to be a bit. So, what does this tell us here? Plus this shortage of skilled workers. Everyone's talking about it. So there's a variety of different kind of things that they say that they are lacking, right? So from this, it means that majority of the businesses in the M&E sector are recognizing the importance of training and upskilling. With strategic interventions, we can play a more pivotal role in ensuring these SMEs are well equipped. So when just now when we talk about new technology, AI and all that, these are all upskilling driven things. So at this juncture, some of the recommendations that MEPN would like to put forth is that we can collaborate more with training providers, we can increase access for upskilling initiatives, and we can collaborate with more ecosystem partners, right? Whether it's Aramax, whether it's Intel, and all that. technology integration. Now, again, the first thing that we say is always that SMEs are, not tech savvy. Take a look. 50% are, sorry, why going backwards one? Okay. So what is the extent of technology integrated into your company's process? Of course, we did not deep dive what kind of technology, right? But I think what, two-thirds? Two-thirds of it are basic or moderate. Advanced, 24%. That's a good quarter. Did that surprise you? So what does this mean, yeah? There is a very small minority of companies, that tiny little bit, who have yet to substantially embrace technology. But other than that, I think everyone understands that technology is a competitive advantage and they are ready. Now, before that, right, some some of the recommendations we want to put forth at this juncture is that perhaps we need to conduct a comprehensive technology audit, right, to understand the exact state of technology integration. Perhaps we can help SMEs to design a clearer roadmap that outlines the different stages of technology adoption. So this can also work with partners like Intel or Aramex that incorporates supply chain considerations as a strategy, right? So, and perhaps MPC with a different productivity nexus, right, we can identify pilot projects that involve advanced technologies. We choose one. It could be IoT, it could be automation, and a specific process to gauge the effectiveness of our pilot project. Get an ROI, get a POC, and then we go into a more comprehensive full-scale rollout. This could be something that we can look at, right? The collaboration of the different nexuses. We could engage more with key stakeholders to ensure technology integration is smooth and seamless. Because it's not about one silo or another, and they're all interrelated. And of course, this will promote a culture of innovation. We'll talk more about that. Again, SMEs surprisingly are ready for that, right? And of course, everything that we do, periodically we need to review the roadmap, review the strategy, right? So we, I don't think we can approach all companies the same way. So for those that already have more advanced implementation, perhaps we can encourage them to continue to innovate. Perhaps we can foster platforms for peer sharing and collaboration, those that are, on par with each other. And perhaps we can start to, educate them on things like risk management, something a little bit more mature. And for the companies with basic technology integration, perhaps this is where we go into capacity building. Perhaps with the banks, financial support to integrate, and vendor connection, so supply chain, right? And for companies, those that were, midway, they're probably companies that have key operational technology integration. Not the entire thing, but just pockets of it, right? So these kind of companies, perhaps we can look at gap analysis. Maybe we can, put forward more integration support and maybe cybersecurity training. That was what Mr. Kenneth was talking about. And of course, for that small percentage of companies that's not yet started, awareness campaigns. Why? Digital literacy. Maybe they don't know how. We teach them how to get started. And perhaps mentorship. Yeah? Now next, inventory management. So a lot of people might ask, why did we choose to look at inventory? Because in the M&E sector, the intricacy of your inventory underscores that importance of it's risk management, it's cost management, it's productivity, adaptability, all roll into one. And when you take a look at how they manage their inventory, that's how you tell whether the company can move forward. Take a look. Some are minimum inventory, some are moderate inventory. These two are the biggest categories. What does that mean? When you have minimum inventory with JIT practices, that is low holding costs, but you might struggle to meet sudden demand surge. Then you are at risk again. Then the 39.7% that balance between holding costs and being prepared for variation in demand, they probably lack sophisticated inventory systems, probably Excel sheets still. So these occupy mid-ground, but they could use with something more sophisticated. 15.5% substantial inventory, so they can respond to rapid inventory, rapid demand in shifts, but holding cost is high. These are only big companies, and definitely it's not just about the cash flow issues, but also sometimes the inventory become obsolete, or it could be perishable, or sometimes in the case of an SME that's over ambitious, they forgot about it. So that is a chunk of cash they're sitting on as they complain about no cash flow. So 10% enjoy heightened operational efficiency and customer satisfaction, but this is really, really resource intensive. So it may not be good on the bottom line. So what are the recommendations based on this? I think we should move towards a more moderate inventory level, not too little, not too much, given that we now have experienced pandemic and supply chain disruptions, not too little. We understand that, right? So leveraging on technology advancements, that's why AI comes into the picture. For companies with minimal inventory, maybe they want to invest in something that is risk management for supply chain. Maybe they want to diversify supplier base to mitigate some potential disruptions. Maybe the suppliers need to come from different parts for different destination markets. So these are all strategies. That's why earlier on I was saying that supply chain now is not a defensive, passive way of delivering something. It's a business strategy, right? So for companies with moderate inventory, perhaps a little bit more dynamic system to utilize digital tools. Again, this is where AI can really shine, right? And of course, data analytics to optimize stock levels and reduce costs. Then for the companies with substantial inventory, prioritize the implementation of advanced demand forecasting tools. Again, AI. Do more audits. And for companies with a really comprehensive system, perhaps it's time to do evaluations on your system. There's always room for improvement. Next, R&D and innovation. R&D, most of us laugh, right? SME and R&D. So when we ask them, how do you approach innovation and R&D to improve products, processes, or services? To our surprise, 3.4% say none, which is a good start. Most of them, surprisingly, have in-house R&D team, 65%. Maybe not very sophisticated, but it's still, they recognize it, they have enough awareness to understand that it is R&D. Then collaborative partnerships with external parties. And then, so a lot of them actually think of R&D as market research and customer feedback, and they're not wrong, right? What percentage of your annual budget is allocated to R&D? This is very telling. The bulk of them is between 1 to 5%, which is quite a huge chunk for an SME. Only 25% is less than 1%. So I think there seems to be dominance about in-house R&D. So whether this means that proprietary stand that I need to own what I develop, I'm not sure. A lot of them seem to be taking collaborative approach. There's a really good awareness about emerging trends. And the budget allocation, although it's quite conservative, it's very, very promising, right? So what does this mean, yeah? I think overall, the industry is showing resilience. They understand they need to pivot. They understand they need to change. So how do we move forward from this? More platforms like this to foster collaboration, more training, more education. Perhaps the AI PC will help a lot, because then you can do it in-house without fear that it's being leaked out, right? And drive more campaigns to highlight the long-term competitive advantages. When it comes to resilience, we also ask them, how do you face your challenges? Before that, what are the 3 main challenges you face now? Quite clear. Economic uncertainty, financial constraints, and market competition. How much of this is excuse, I wonder? Because, we can't control the economy, and the economy kind of sucks everywhere in the world. So, how much of this is excuse? What are your most significant challenges, specifically to your journey to improve business performance and productivity? Lack of funding, challenges with government ecosystem, the management focus on day-to-day operations and survivability, but not keen on transformation. These are the three biggest things. I think the part about challenges with government is something that NIMP wants to address, better investor experience. But the lack of funding will be something that we address in the next panel as well, right? But at least there is an awareness that they are looking at more day-to-day operations. Does that mean that we should teach SMEs to look at more diversification, whether in terms of diversifying products or services or markets or the way they do things? Right? Does that mean that we should foster more collaborative approach between industry and government? Does that mean that we need to invest more in training? These are all things that we can do. But also, perhaps, alternative financing or smarter financial packages. Perhaps this is the time that we teach SMEs how to shift to a longer-term strategic focus. I mean, for the longest time, SMEs was always about the next meal, right? The next month, right? The next, perhaps a bit longer term. And that is sustainability in itself. And also, how do we leverage each other? Not just at a national level, at a state level, how do we leverage each other? These are all questions that we can ask. Then, of course, when you talk about resilience, how do you add value? When we ask, how do you add value to your customers' experience or meet their needs? Look at that. Responsive and efficient customer support. That's the Malaysian thing, right? Keep our customer happy. Do you back it up with the delivery? Timely delivery. That's important. Customer wants it and they want it faster than they ever did. Customized solution. So we understand that high mix, low volume. How do we up the game for that? Does that mean that we reinforce customer support infrastructure? And does that mean that we drive more personalization and customization? How do we teach them to do that? Does AI play a part? How do we enhance quality control when we have high mix and low volume? And again, timely delivery. This is really tricky when the consignments are small. Perhaps some of the things that we can do is to champion co-creation. What we can strengthen after sales and extended support. These are actually these days a given. We can encourage innovative integration and look more at the global trends. Next, when we ask the companies, how do you adapt? Again, the bulk of them are SMEs. And SMEs are, by definition, supposed to be more agile, right? So how do you adapt when the market demands change? It's a mixed bag, I think. So there's no clear preference. I think it's pretty much a mixed bag. We show certain level of maturity as well. Now this is interesting. Bank Negara actually took an interest to our survey and they wanted us to ask, what form of funding are you most likely to rely on when expanding your business or enhancing productivity? Most of us thought the answer would be overwhelmingly grant. No. 31% bank lending. So we are still conservative, right? That's quite interesting, right? So what does this mean? I mean, the preferred source of funding is bank lending. But also, almost 30% are using retained earnings for growth, which means that there's a certain level of financial health and profitability, right? I mean, those who are not healthy, to put it crudely, died during the pandemic. So those who have survived, how do we build on that, right? The willingness to engage with alternative financing, we can see that 19%, 17% rely on capital from existing shareholders. They made money, so now they put in more money. So what does this mean? Better partnerships with banks? A little bit deeper type of financial literacy programs where we teach them not just how to manage your cash your cash book and things like that, but rather financing options, strategic financial planning that balance growth with financial health. Maybe it's about first, more access to alternative financing, maybe more government encouragement to create more outreach for the government grants, or maybe listen to more feedback so that we can customize grants better. Maybe to teach them how to develop internal fund accumulation strategies, right? How do you maximize profit retention strategies? How do you reinvest? But I also want to say that they are showing financial health. So perhaps we also need to teach companies how to make money. Perhaps the government can start to emphasize more on buying Malaysia first, beginning with government procurement. And number two, facilitate more SME participation internationally. We want to talk about global value chain. We want to talk about global supply chain. Our players need to be ready and they need to have the access. Forward-looking, compliance and sustainability. Are we ready? When we ask about environmental compliance, actually I'm quite surprised. 43% say fully compliant, 80% partially compliant. Okay lah, got some that are quite honest, not compliant. When we ask about employee welfare, do you prioritize employee welfare and workplace safety? Oh, more than 80% say yes, we comply with labor law. Close to 80% say we provide safe and inclusive work environment. And of course, we give regular safety trainings. Social responsibility, do you contribute to your local community? Ada juga. Charitable causes donations, partnership with local schools, CSR initiatives. And when we ask, what did you start with? Which of the following are you actively promoting? What have you started implementing? It's quite obvious, they start with the cost-cutting things. Energy efficiency, waste reduction, and then adoption of renewable energy. Likely this is the solar panels, thanks to incentives. But also there is awareness about sustainable sourcing of raw materials. So I think we're seeing that the companies are taking quite a pragmatic approach. So the things that they are implementing, they are beginning with those that bring them immediate effects, right? So they are doing the cost-cutting things, they are doing the donations, not so much your hands-on, they're not getting their hands dirty, they're just making the donation, right? So what does this mean? Yeah? Does this mean that we need to start helping them strengthen their compliance? So providing more compliance support? Maybe we can start to help SMEs to set actionable and measurable sustainable goals. Maybe conduct workshops to help them understand sustainable practices. And perhaps it's time to incentivize progress, right? Of course, Messi has to ask this question. Do you ensure ethical practices throughout your supply chain? Scope 3. Again, it's a mixed bag. But I think more than half are saying that yes, we are, or we're in the process of developing it. Do you monitor and report? Yes. In the process, more than 50%. Not too bad. Better than what I thought. Now, future. What are your primary sustainable goals for the future? Zero waste. Again, that's continuing on the trend of cost reduction. Increased use of renewable energy sources. Again, that's continuing the trend. Enhance employee diversity and inclusion. Again, continuing the trend. But not too far behind, carbon neutrality and expanding CSR initiatives. Then, of course, what are the ESG pressures that you face from your customers? What are the things that your customers are asking you for? Regulatory compliance, competitive advantage, governance, environmental concerns. So those are the things that they're facing from their customers. And in the face of everything, we want to know whether they're serious. Do you have a PIC? Not yet. So although we have started, we have yet to come up with a little bit more concrete steps forward. But at least 35% of them now do. So that's the end of my survey findings.